We can actually solve crime in the city of Chicago with my plan.
We will never be able to end gun violence in Chicago as long as the president continues to allow tens of thousands of guns to be trafficked into our state and our city.
DHS sources actually confirmed that ICE is everywhere across the nation, but we're going to see the highest volume of ICE officers and its federal partners in places like Washington, D.C., which we have been watching, in places like Chicago, where ICE just announced Operation Midway Blitz across Illinois, and then also in Boston, where the agency announced and launched Operation Patriot 2.0 just yesterday, targeting what it calls the worst of the worst across Massachusetts.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come.
You know, Democrats just have a keen ability on falling for the bait so easily. They're not exactly the most mentally stable or composed or mature individuals, but you already knew that. Because weeks ago, we were covering the way in which national Democrats were slightly trying to reverse their rhetoric when it came to the crime issue. This was after the massive success of the DC federal takeover and the fact that I think their party just understood that maybe defending the criminals is not exactly a winning position in the eyes of voters. So we even have Gavin Newsom announcing he's going to be doing a statewide tough on crime campaign that ironically was very similar to Trump's federal takeover of DC. But we know Trump is Gavin Newsom's favorite president. Gavin loves to copy everything that Trump does. But he even went out and tried to warn the National Democrat Party it was not exactly a winning issue to downplay the crime issue in the eyes of the voters. But it turns out all it took to bust open this completely fake and insincere rebrand by the Democrat Party, because we knew exactly why they were doing it, was just for Trump to post this pretty hilarious meme and act upon that. And immediately they're right back to it. Crime is good. Crime's not a real issue. We even saw today, at the same exact time where Trump is announcing the beginning of Operation Midway Blitz, which is sort of this double action that can both go after immigration enforcement, but also fulfills on his threat to send more federal law enforcement to the city of Chicago because they refuse to do anything to actually help their own citizens against their crime problem. Immediately, Democrats and some of the so-called leaders of this party are rushing back to embrace their most radical crime positions because, as I said, Trump breaks these people so easily that he can do anything. He can just sneeze or something and immediately they're gonna be like, sneezing is bad, that makes him a fascist. And that's what you're seeing. Zohran Mamdami, for instance, the very radical candidate running for mayor of New York, after kind of staying quiet about some of his crime positions, which I called out time and time again, are the most threatening part actually about his candidacy, even more than the economics. Just today, after Trump makes this an issue, is going out and talking about how much he would love to release all of the criminals back onto the streets of New York City and proudly doing so, but he's not the only one. Representative Jasmine Crockett giving ridiculous and idiotic positions on law enforcement as usual. JB Pritzker, of course, is joining in and melting down. So I want to run you through this whole story in today's video, both in terms of what Trump is now doing in Chicago and the Democrat reaction it has triggered, because again, these people, it was so easy to call out, no, your little we care about crime rebrand after saying for weeks that you supported the criminals was not sincere. We'll get into it. First though, guys, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're almost at 500K. Help us get there. Hit that red button. And with that said, so briefly mentioned in the last video, but just today, Operation Midway Blitz has begun in Chicago with ICE agents surging into the city. They have already made arrests of some pretty bad criminal illegals, and needless to say, liberals are not all that happy. Trump certainly is. And by the way, I'd like to point out here that this is a very smart way for Trump to kind of do the federalization of Chicago without running into the woke judges or the legal challenges, right? Because if he sends a National Guard without the governor's approval, as he's pointed out before, he's probably going to get sued over it. They might strike it down or not, but you can send ICE into the city to do immigration enforcement. That is completely legal. That is something the Supreme Court held up today. But in the process of doing so, you're also going to have more law enforcement simply present on the streets of Chicago, which simultaneously will not just deter illegal immigrants, but can further deter crime. See how he's kind of playing this smart? But anyways, that said, here is Operation Midway Blitz, combining the sanctuary city issue with the crime issue, although they're already connected. And here's those details.
So the surge has begun. You can see the new ICE vehicles on the streets here in Chicago. We're just outside the Cook County Courthouse, but that surge is part of the ICE-led Operation Midway Blitz that they say is in honor of a beautiful young Chicago woman, Katie Abraham, who was killed by an illegal alien drunk driver back in January of this year. And while we are getting reaction from Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who says that this blitz won't make Chicagoans safer, let me show you this video. Early this morning, I was out with one of ICE's teams, and we arrested this individual. His name is Juan Gaspar, and he is a 43-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. He has been convicted in 2024 of forcibly sexually assaulting a child under the age of 13. He was taken, as you can see here, without incident, but this is all part of the exact sort of violent criminal illegal alien that the ICE operations hope to bring in, apprehend, and ultimately deport.
Well, you're hearing a lot of pushback, Chris, a lot of fear and even some anger. If you talk about what we just saw here, it was another, you mentioned, third day of protests against the threat of sending more ICE agents or more federal agents for that increased immigration operations here in Chicago and the threat of National Guard. But you're also hearing that pushback from Chicago's political leaders. Mayor Brandon Johnson saying the meme that you were just talking about was beneath the dignity of the president. You had JB Pritzker, the governor, saying that this is something that should be taken seriously, saying that the president is threatening war on a major American city. And at issue here, Chris, is not just the opposition to those increased ICE operations that are likely to come, that the governor has been warning that he's hearing is going to happen, is imminent here in Chicago, but it's also the threat that you're hearing of the National Guard.
Right, well, you're already hearing some of the reactions this has gotten from Democrats, even as ICE is arresting literal child predators who are illegal aliens convicted of child predation, but somehow not deported from this country under the Biden administration. They will sit here and tell you to your face, this is not making us safer. They will look at the insane shooting and murder rates, not just in Chicago, but a lot of American cities. We care about all of them. It's not just about red states or blue states here. And claim that everything is perfectly safe and we're doing a good job. Like, we know how to keep you safe. Our approach is clearly working and Trump's the really bad guy here, right? Utterly just ridiculous. But of course, they're continuing here. Here's the official response today at the announcement of Operation Midway Blitz by Governor JB Pritzker. And again, keep in mind, he is saying this as one of the very first arrests made in Operation Midway Blitz was a convicted child predator. And I'm sure he's going to be referred to as an Illinois father by the Democrats here very soon. And, you know, don't get it twisted. They are protesting on behalf of not deporting any of them. They're going to claim, oh, no, we just care about the innocent civilians and the people who are just working hard. They didn't do anything wrong. Really? Is that why anytime ICE shows up anywhere, you don't even care what they're doing? You protest, you try to assault them. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is your top moral crusader, right? You're claiming, you know, you're singing in these pink vests saying, Kilmar's one of us, Kilmar is our hero. They literally saying that, by the way. Yeah. Anyways, here's his response saying, once again, this is not about fighting crime. Fighting crime requires support and coordination. Yet we've experienced nothing like that over the past several weeks. Instead of taking steps to work with us on public safety, the Trump administration is focused on scaring Illinoisians. This is, of course, by the way, as you heard, while JB Pritzker is claiming that Trump is bringing a war to the streets of Chicago, Illinois, as if judging by the murder rates, there is not already a war happening as we speak currently, right? It's a very famous statistic from back in the day, actually, about how there are more deaths happening in Chicago like every weekend than there were even in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's where the Chirac name comes from. But, you know, no, the war is when you come in and stop the criminals. That's the problem, right? But two thoughts I have on this initially. First of all, you talk about fighting crime. Again, Democrats, you are going to sit here and tell me that your approach to fighting crime has been working? No, it hasn't. So why don't you get out of the way for once and say, because look at this, right? So over the weekend in Chicago, 6 more killed, 12 more injured. It's a normal weekend in Chicago. Now, over Labor Day, which was 2 weekends ago, I think the number out there was 54. They said it's perfectly fine. It's safe. By the way, Pritzker further goes on here to say, well, in order to fight crime, we need support and coordination. Yeah, well, who is refusing that? According to you as well, by the way, you claim Trump's been trying to call you to talk about National Guard and all this stuff, and you have been proudly saying, I'm not picking up the phone, yet you're claiming it's Trump that's not coordinating with you. No, Trump has said publicly many times, the record is there, we played the video, saying he wants your support in sending National Guard and sending federal help. You've said you don't need it. You've said your city is perfectly safe. And now you're saying, well, they're not helping us in fighting crime. You're refusing the help, dingus, right? I'd like to note as well, by the way, that Trump recently announced, before Democrats try to say this is an issue of targeting blue states, that he plans to send in either federal agents or National Guard to clean up the streets of New Orleans in Louisiana. Louisiana is obviously a red state, but you know why that is? You know where he got the approval from that? Because the governor of Louisiana is obviously a Republican, and he said that's perfectly fine. We very much would like to clean up New Orleans, because why? It's not just about targeting blue states. We want all of these cities in our country to be safe. No one has ever denied, by the way, that New Orleans is a cesspool. New Orleans has a very high crime rate. It's a beautiful city. It has a lot of history. It's a shame what it's become, right? It's only you guys who melt down because when we call out a Democrat city like Chicago, and a Democrat state, I should say, because they're both Democrat cities, that you claim you're being targeted. No. And frankly, I think that if Pritzker continues here and all these governors and mayors on the Democrat Party just won't do it, you know what we should immediately perform, I think, is just send all of the National Guard to the red states and help the crime and crack down and do it with the consent of the governors. And what will that show? Essentially, there's this national issue. It's called crime. Look at what the Republican states are doing. Look how them cooperating with the Trump administration has made these places so much better, so much cleaner, so much safer. Look how the Democrats are refusing, and see how that plays in the 2026 midterms for your party. I'm just saying. So anyways, there you essentially have it, though. He is claiming that apparently he's doing such a great job of fighting crime. But as I said, talking about taking the bait here, not only is Pritzker immediately going back into that kind of circle of Democrat thinking, oh, more police doesn't make us safe. Oh, like deterring criminals doesn't make us safe. But as I said, nationally today, for some reason, on the same exact day where Midway Blitz starts, a bunch of Democrat politicians decided to absolutely lose their minds. Let's talk, for instance, about Zohran Mamdami, who, as I said in the beginning, has been a little bit quiet on this issue, but now in a roundtable interview today is stating, as, of course, this crime issue goes national, he wants to reduce the jail population and ensure that New York courts release their suspects from jail, from incarceration faster. This is after a long string of crimes in New York City where you've had these repeat offenders go on to murder someone. That includes even the Laken Riley story, if you may remember there correctly. And yet this guy, causing a lot of liabilities for the Democrats in the midterms here, is saying that, to me, sounds like a fantastic idea. Yes, Democrats, let's all double down on this garbage. Take a listen.
The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. I mean, Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700. And some of this also just has to look at the average stay on Rikers in the 90s was 50 days. Now it's more than 100. There are more than 1,500 people on Rikers who have been held there for more than a year. So I do think many of the reforms that have to be made are also reforms around the court system and ensuring that people are actually having speedy.
Yeah, so New York City's problem, according to Zohran, and again, Democrats, you're doing a great job on this crime issue, please keep going, is not that the judges, even as the governor, Kathy Hochul, called out and actually was kind of siding with the Republicans on this, is not that the judges are letting too many of the criminals out of jail and too quickly. they're not doing it enough. We actually need more crazy criminals running around the streets of New York. And the problem is, these people are being kept in jail for too long. They used to be 50 days, now it's 100 days. Could you imagine keeping a violent criminal in jail for less than a year? The horror of this, right? And it doesn't stop. Again, as I said, Democrats have taken the bait to immediately go back to BLM 2020 insanity, and they're not apologizing for it. Take a listen here as Zohran comes out in favor of abolishing the NYPD's gang database. Because don't you know, right? Violent gangs, that's not a thing. These are just groups of teenagers wearing basketball jerseys or something. Really? Okay, take a listen.
Let me ask you about a bunch of different policies just to kind of get your thinking out there. If city council legislation to abolish the NYPD gang database were to pass, would you support and sign that?
I have supported that proposal. It's one that I've supported because of the vast dragnet has meant the inclusion of New Yorkers on the basis of whether they go out late, photos they put on social media. There's no question that we have to take gangs extremely seriously. And yet I find that a database that includes New Yorkers on such bases is one that doesn't actually do exactly that.
So gangs are a very serious problem, but we shouldn't actually do anything to take them seriously. Zohran Mamdami, ladies and gentlemen, future thought leader of the Democrat Party, truly the voice the left wing needs today. Oh, he's so brilliant. Keep it up, Zohran. You're doing a great job. A great job at destroying the Democrat Party, but indeed you are. But as I said, back when he won the primary against Cuomo, I think it's important for people to remember, and this doesn't just apply to him, this applies to a lot of Democrats, especially when it comes to local governance. This is the single most threatening issue that people need to be aware of. I know the common attack line and the number one is to call him a socialist. And yes, his economic ideas are stupid. They're kind of loony, but you also have to be realistic. Most likely he'll get to the mayorship and they won't really be implemented, or you get some watered down version of it that's just dysfunctional. It doesn't work. And sure, maybe it raises taxes a little bit or causes some businesses to leave. That's all possibility. But the biggest imminent threat to New York City and the people of that city is that on day one, he can get in there, just start releasing the criminals out of jail, just start embracing all of the no cash bail policies, making them even worse. Because he's claiming right now New York City is being too tough on crime. That threatens everyone's lives, everyone's safety, right? That's what will really turn New York City, even more than it already is, into a dangerous, anarchic, violent nightmare. And yes, that obviously endangers the personal safety of everyone involved. And it's not just a Zohran issue, it's a national Democrat issue. Hence why I've said time and time again, I said back then when he won the primary, in the general election, you need to campaign against him on this crime issue. Now, for some reason, they haven't really done it, right? Adams hasn't done it, Cuomo hasn't done it. I guess Sliwell's done it a bit, but it hasn't really rung home. Everyone's just like, he's a socialist, he's a socialist. Okay, you're talking to liberal voters, though. You understand that, right? No, you need to make it clear. He's going to make your city dangerous, right? Crime is a winning issue. But forget the stupid New York City election. Nationally speaking, Trump has been very smart on this. He understands it. He understands, first of all, crime is a serious issue. It is something that affects Americans directly. It's something Americans care about. And simultaneously, it's also winning politics. So you can do two good things at the same time here. Because he's also successfully managed to get Democrats to go into the 2026 midterms screaming, "We love crime, we love crime." And that's only slight hyperbole for what's actually happening here. Because Zohran, now with these ideas, about to be the ambassador of Democrat leadership and the future and all this garbage, but even the so-called Democrat establishment really is not acting all that differently, right? They're claiming this garbage like more police doesn't make us safe. Pritzker's making a big deal out of it. Take a listen as well to another future leader of the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett, who has a great take here on crime today, reacting, by the way, to Trump's recent policies on this issue. And she has a big-brained one here. Law enforcement is not meant to prevent crime, according to Jasmine Crockett. Clap it up. Brightest opinion I've ever heard. Take a listen.
I want to be clear that, law enforcement isn't to prevent crime. Law enforcement solves crime, okay? That is what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to solve crimes, not necessarily prevent them from happening per se.
Look at them, they're just nodding their heads along. Yes, yes, Jasmine, you're so intelligent. You're the future of the party. Hey, idiot. They're meant to do both. You understand that? They're meant to deter crime from happening, right? Sometimes law enforcement does actually prevent crime from happening, by the way. Or they catch it in the act, right? They respond to the scene actively. And yes, in the cases where they don't, they are meant to solve the crime. That is also true, sure. But the reason she is saying this is because she's trying to make the argument, and this is important for people to understand, that if Trump sends in more federal agents, if there's a greater police presence, that's not going to reduce the crime rate. That's the argument she's trying to make, just so you understand where she's going with that. Except as you see in the fact that DC had basically 0 murders ever since the federal takeover. I think carjackings went down like 86%. Every violent crime is way down ever since the very moment that they did that. Yes, actually, law enforcement does prevent crime, right? If a criminal, for instance, sees a police car on the block and is about to rob someone or do something, he is less likely to do it. Yes, in some cases, you get someone so crazy, it's like, I don't care if there's a police there. But generally speaking, right, it's the soft target principle. The softer you make your target, the more people are going to take advantage of it. If you have a strong target, one that's not very easy to attack because the law enforcement is strong, the security is strong, guess what? You are going to see less crime. It is indeed common sense, okay? And people know it is common sense. That is why, for instance, defunding the police or abolishing the police or all this stupid, crazy garbage that Democrats said back in 2020 was never a popular position back then. But now in 2025, after retreating from it for a couple years because they thought maybe they gained a brain for a little bit, are now going back to because of Trump derangement syndrome, it's still not a popular policy today. But keep going, Democrats. Again, I really encourage you to do so. Now, that said, as the Democrat Party loses their mind and claims that, we're not making the streets safer, police are really bad, ICE is not helping remove violent people from our country, I like to point out that, of course, as they say all these things, turns out Operation Midway Blitz is already a massive success in directly removing safety threats and violent people, and by the way, predators and many other bad things, right, from our community. So take a listen and just understand, as Democrats say these idiotic things, this is what they're opposing, and this is what they're directly calling a bad thing. I don't want to hear any excuses of, that you're strawmanning the position. No. This is what Democrats are opposing. So take a listen.
We're at war with the criminal cartels, and Governor Pritzker protects criminal, illegal alien, public safety threats every day in that state, along with Mayor Johnson. We proved that. The first week of the administration, I went to Chicago. I started an operation there. The first day, we arrested 9 sexual predators, most of them child rapists. We arrested 9 members of TDA. Several of those TDA members had a pistol, an illegal pistol with a switch on it, which makes that pistol fully automatic. We arrested 2 illegal aliens that had a homicide conviction. That was the first day in Chicago. So, President Trump and this administration, we're at war with the criminal cartels and those who want to murder and rape the American citizens. You're damn right.
ICE has detained the man charged in connection with the death of a missing Antioch woman. The Department of Homeland Security says agents arrested Jose Luis Mendoza Gonzalez yesterday afternoon at a market in Chicago, and he remains in ICE custody. They say he is an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. Now, you remember back in April, Mendoza Gonzalez was charged with concealing a corpse, abusing a corpse, and obstruction of justice in the death of Megan Boss. Police in Waukegan found Boss's body in a container in Mendoza Gonzalez's yard. She'd initially been reported missing back in March.
The I-Team tonight following the arrest of a man the FBI says threatened to kill federal agents. Federal authorities say Michael Stover of Downers Grove made multiple posts online threatening to kill ICE agents and was already known to law enforcement for allegedly threatening public officials, also on social media earlier this year.
You can see the suspect, 33-year-old Michael Stover, in this picture posted to his wife's public Facebook page. He was taken into custody by federal agents this morning and made his first appearance in federal court this afternoon, facing charges he threatened to kill immigration agents and harm public officials.
Right, so again, just to be clear, do not forget it. These are exactly the type of people who Chicago's sanctuary city and other soft on crime policies are protecting and sheltering from arrest, from jail, from deportation, whatever the punishment needs to be. These are exactly the people that Governor JB Pritzker reacts to and claims this is not fighting crime and this is not making us safer. Almost hilariously, although it's not a very funny issue, right? While he is not fighting crime and he is not making anyone safer. This is the Democrat Party for you. And their reaction to what you're seeing today is not to say, look, even if you want to oppose what Trump is doing, look, we are serious about crime, though. That's the thing. Like, you're lying. Like, we're going to do something. We will coordinate. We'll take more resources. No. It's to double down and say, no, crime is a good thing. Don't you guys know? The police shouldn't be stopping crime. Police are bad. Let's go out and say that more criminals should be running free on our streets. And like, this is how we appeal, guys, to our own voters as well as ordinary Americans. Okay. Very smart of you guys. But anyways, that said, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. What do you think of the announcement of Operation Midway Blitz? Do you think it's smart politics? Do you think he should go to more cities? What do you think of him going to some Republican states, right? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.